Hello whiskey fans! Tonight we're going to be trying something very unusual and really special. A beautiful single malt from the island nation of Japan, the Hakushu Single Malt Distillers Reserve. A lot of people are very enthusiastic about Japanese whiskey, and I'm a huge Scotch fan, but I have to say I have a very special place in my heart for Japanese whiskey too. In fact, Japanese things in general are something that I'm always very enthusiastic about. Now, the Japanese have a very special aspect of their culture that really allows people to indulge in their passions creatively. And to a lot of Westerners, that makes the Japanese come across sometimes as a little bit strange or intense, because they do tend to really go deep when it comes to their creative instincts. And so when a Japanese company sets about creating something that is special and extraordinary, they really go all the way. And that's why you've got these amazing Japanese electronics companies, automotive companies that have created legendary products that are truly outstanding. And pretty much every Japanese conglomerate or manufacturer or whatever you like will create a few items that are really just passion pieces that don't necessarily have enormous economic value to the brand. They normally don't sell in enough numbers to actually make them a profit, but they're just they're just being produced out of the sheer passion of the people who work there. And I think that actually a lot of the whiskies that they produced in the very beginning were like that too. They couldn't necessarily make them as effectively or as cheaply as they could be made in Scotland, but they really focused on the quality, and that is so evident in their whiskies. So this guy is in this absolutely beautiful forest green bottle, lovely silky paper labeling. It's a really beautiful object. The design is fantastic. Hakushu means applause, I think. And this particular whiskey is distilled high up on the side of a volcano that is surrounded by lush pine forest. So it's a really beautiful place. And apparently there's a lot of that environment in the whiskey itself. So if we look at this little guy, it's just a beautiful pure jewelry gold color, so 24 karat gold. Real jewel-like sparkle in this beautiful, crisp and clear whiskey. Oh, it's got magnificent fragrance on the nose. It's like freshly cut spring grass. It's so crisp, like slicing open a Granny Smith apple, or there's hints of vanilla, and it's just fresh grass that just keeps coming back to me. It's so beautiful. It's really beautiful. Maybe pine needles as well. Summer pine needles. I don't know if you ever walked through a pine forest in the summertime, but there's that slightly chemical fragrance that comes up from the forest floor, from the decomposing pine needles in the sunshine, and that there is just a hint of that. Some vanilla, definite hint of pine, and that freshly cut green grass. A touch of mojito mintiness to it as well. It's beautiful, beautiful fragrance. Let's have a taste. This whiskey is perfect. So soft and elegant, and this lovely hint of sort of lemon zest, citrusiness about it. It's so fresh, really refreshing spring whiskey. It's not really a cold, wintry kind of whiskey. I mean, it is warming in your chest, But that's not what this is about. This is a smooth, perfect, crispy, fresh drink. A bit of a hint of smoke coming out now that I've tasted it, and I'm smelling it again. Bit of smokiness. Oh, what was that? Towards the back, I'm starting to get some wood now. A bit of oak barrel. I'm not sure how this is aged. My guess would be in bourbon barrels, ex-bourbon barrels. It's not sweet enough to be fresh oak. It's definitely, although it is sweet, it's got a hint of honey, not bitter at all. I think its sweetness is best categorized as the lack of bitterness. This is so finely balanced. A lot of sweet whiskies, like a lot of your bourbon whiskies, will have a real punch of vanilla-y, honeyed sweetness, and then also a whack of bitterness. And that's sort of balanced in the same way as a dumbbell is balanced. You know, you've got a big weight on either end. This is more that yin-yang kind of balance, if you know what I mean. A little bit of bitter in the sweet, and a little bit of sweet in the bitter, but everything's in perfect harmony. And this is a perfect drink. There is nothing about this I would change. I'm just absolutely in love with the cut grass smell of this. Everything about this is green. You can just imagine the forest that this was distilled in. I can imagine the smell coming off of the fresh mountain stream as it trickled through the pine forests, filtering down through layers of old pine needles and maybe oak leaves, and through larval rocks, just filtering and taking on all the flavors and minerals from that mountain that it's come down on, and it's all gone into this whiskey. And yeah, it's stunning. These whiskies aren't cheap. This is one of the cheaper Japanese whiskies you can buy. It's about 55 pounds, 60-ish, $70, depending on where you find it. So it's not cheap, pretty much double the price of your entry-level whiskies. But it's a stunner. It's really, really good. It's perfect, just fantastically balanced. The Japanese have a philosophy called Kaizen, which you may have heard of, and it's about continuous improvement. And Japanese and Westerners have quite a different philosophy around quality. So the Western, sort of American and European philosophy around quality is about getting something to a point where it's very, very good, and the next level of improvement is usually that they consider prohibitively expensive. So it's kind of like the 80-20 Pareto kind of value operation in Western concepts of quality. But the Japanese really caused a stir in the 60s and 70s when they entered the manufacturing world with their Kaizen philosophy on quality, and they felt that the traditional understandings of improvement and quality control shouldn't be viewed as a point where you reach a plateau where there's no more reasonable improvement that can be achieved. And they think that each imperfection or failure in process is just as easy to remedy as the previous one. And so they have this philosophy of the search for zero defect. And if you owned a Panasonic device in the 80s, you probably fell for their advertising slogan, Panasonic, the search for zero defect. And that is what this is all about. This is a Kaizen zero defect whiskey. It is so gorgeous. It's beautiful to look at, it's wonderful to smell, and it tastes absolutely amazing. A small part of me is tempted to put some water in this and tell you what that does, but that's just going to ruin it. This baby is perfect. The soft honey notes, you get flavor on the tongue, lovely lemony citrusness, hint of oakiness, just the slightest hint of the oak barrels that it was aged in. mint and citrus and pine needles and hint of smokiness on the nose. It's got everything aside for peat. There's no peatiness. I don't believe the Japanese ever dried their malted barley with peat smoke. So probably just dried using regular old logs. And there's no shame, not every whiskey needs to be peated. This thing is perfect and beautiful just like it is. Would not change a thing. Fantastic. Buy some, you won't regret it. And as they say in Japan, senpai.